do you see a guy on day 2, day 3 that stands out to you that you have had your eye on that just feels like a pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I do actually, and this was a guy that we saw at the kind of the beginning of our own draft process at the Senior Bowl, and that's Carl Brooks, defensive lineman
Oh,
from
okay.
Bowling Green. Yeah, he's projected to go like be a pick in the 200s, but I don't know that guy. I was really shocked when I saw that. I did a little like mock draft some options in that range for the Steelers, and I was shocked that he would have even been available at that pick because I was just so impressed with him at the Senior Bowl. I think he's got a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
I love Carl Brooks. He's got crazy size, but can move so well at that position. And they need defensive linemen, they need edge rushers, but I think this guy has the potential to play on the inside too. I think as a day 3 pick, as a value pick, that would be a slam dunk.
Yeah, Carl Brooks he's just such a name to watch. Derek actually has him in his mock draft at 120. Do you think that that's too high to take him, or you think that he's worth the reach? I want to say I feel like it's hard to reach in the 4th round, but do you think he's worth the reach?
Yeah, I think so. Just only because you're not picking in the 5th or 6th round.
Yeah.
That would make sense to me. That I think that would be worth it. I don't know if every team would value Brooks the same way, but for the Steelers, that would absolutely make sense to me. Yeah, 120 would work. I don't know if he's like if that's his actual, like in a vacuum, that's where he would be drafted, but situationally for the Steelers, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not upset about it at 120 because I think Carl Brooks has like that upside. Like I think he could come in here. He could replace Isaiah Loudermilk. Maybe he could play a little bit of nose tackle. He could play on the edge. The guy literally does it all. And to come from Bowling Green, like you said, like we had our eyes on him at the Senior Bowl because he was probably the second best player at the Senior Bowl outside of the dude from Northwestern that I will never be able to pronounce his name. But Carl Brooks has been that dude. That's a really good pick for the Steelers. I could see that happening. And I could see it happening at 120. I could also see them trading back in, into that 4th or 5th round area, or 5th or 6th round area, excuse me, and going after a guy like that with that versatility. Mine is along the same lines there. I think Gervon Dexter isn't going to go as high as a lot of people have him. Some say he's a 2nd round pick. Some say he's maybe an early 3rd round pick. I could see him fall into that 80 mark, but I think that he is almost a lock to end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers at 80. And here's why, because I think him, maybe Keanu Benton are like the 2 names that I feel very confidently fit the Pittsburgh Steelers and exactly what they're looking to do. They want that inside-outside versatility. They want another DeMarvin Leal. They like what DeMarvin Leal could do. Like there's a lot of people that have question marks of, is this guy ever going to turn into something successful because he doesn't really have a position. I think they like those positionless players. Like I think that they really much so value the DeMarvin Leals. Gervon Dexter is another one of those guys. He's a defensive end who could play the edge. He could play inside. He's very fast. He's very raw. He's athletic, but he's also super strong. He's got a lot of development left in him. I think that he's not even as developed as Brooks, I would say. I think that if you started both day 1 as rookies, Brooks probably would outperform Dexter. But I think that Dexter's got so much potential and a lot of upside. And I was told at the NFL Combine that this is a dude that somebody's going to get in that 2nd or 3rd round, and he's going to be an absolute steal. And a lot of people told me that, not just one. And I think that the Steelers kind of fall into that notion. They did cancel the pre-draft visit with them, which, there's also are always concerns about that. But at the same time, there's a million reasons that you would cancel a pre-draft visit. It's not just, we're no longer interested in this guy. If he's there at 80, I could see him ending up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'd feel really good about that.
So you think it's 80, not 49?
I don't know. I think it could be 49. I think they're still going to be addressing needs at 49. Like I could see an edge rusher at 49. I could see maybe a wide receiver at 49. I could see a second cornerback at 49. I could see an interior offensive lineman. I don't know, maybe a linebacker. Jack Campbell could be there at 49. I just think that at that point, you're not going to be looking at that flexible guy. And I'm telling you, I think Dexter's going to slide. Like there's a lot of guys that have him like anywhere from 32 all the way to, the end of the third round. But I think that, if Brian Brzee doesn't make it to the top 20, these guys are going to start falling. And I think Dexter's, one of those names.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Addresses a need, like you said, positional versatility. I think someone asked Mike Tomlin about that earlier in the weekend, maybe Omar Khan, just about like the rise of positionless football,
Yeah, that was good
Where
old Wex. Good
yeah.
old
I thought
Jim
that was a
Wexel.
good question. I enjoyed
Yeah.
hearing about that. I think it's interesting. So I like that pick, and yeah, kind of the same deal as Carl Brooks. You're looking for a guy who, when you're bringing a project like that, I think it's interesting to bring in a guy who can do multiple things, and that you can kind of that it's not going to be a difficult job finding a place for him to play.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. I think you could just plug and play him, develop him behind Larry Ogunjobi and Cam
Mhm.
Hayward, maybe a little TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith in there. And I think you're feeling really good about that, like raw athletic player that you just added to your defensive line, especially because they've already added some depth. So I feel like they feel rather comfortable there. Do you have a guy that you're like, oh, this guy's been on my radar for the Steelers? He remains on my radar for the Steelers, and I think he's a possibility in the next 3 days.
Yeah, so this theory kind of takes a hit after the Allen Robinson trade because he is
Okay.
a receiver. He is a slot receiver, but Jalen Reed from Michigan
Oh, from
State,
Michigan State.
another guy we saw at the Senior Bowl. I really like him. He's got great speed, great hands. He's athletic. He can make some difficult catches. I think this team still needs kind of an injection of speed.
Hmm.
Like when you think about it, Calvin Austin is really kind of the only burner on that offense. So I would love an injection of speed. This guy could probably play some special teams too, maybe return some punts or kicks. Um, he wouldn't, he would. He's a day 2 pick at best.
Yeah.
Probably more likely a day 3. It might require you to you'd either have to reach for him in round 4 or trade back into 5 or 6. But I think he's well within the possibilities for them to draft, and I think he would be a great fit.
That's Jalen Reed's a big one. I
Mhm.
think he's been on their radar. They brought him in for a pre-draft visit. They met with them at the combine. I don't know if they went to Michigan State's pro day, but he, just like you said, like he's a slot guy with a bunch of speed. I don't think Allen Robinson necessarily removes the need for a wide receiver for the Steelers. Like I think that
Mhm.
he certainly helps the case, but I don't look at Miles Boykin as a guy who's going to play any offense. I don't think Gunnar Olszewski is a lock for a roster spot this season. I think he could be on his way out very, very soon. And then you look at Calvin Austin, he's going to play. And unless something terrible happens or he doesn't turn into anything good, he's going to play. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. I don't think Anthony Miller's a lock by no means. And I don't think he's a reason that they wouldn't draft a wide receiver. And Allen Robinson's 30 years old and next year he's supposed to make $18 million. So
Right.
chances are he's not sticking around after this year anyways, unless they could seriously cut his cap number down. Jalen Reed would be a name that would
Mhm.
be. I mean, Jalen Reed's been on my radar a little bit. I do think that he's a possibility there, like 80, 120 maybe for them, depending on where he slides. I'm gonna go along those same lines. A guy that I mentioned once, he was in one of my mock drafts, then kind of faded away, but it's Josh Downs, North Carolina. I think 49, maybe even 80, depending on where these wide receivers start to go. He could be a guy that ends up in Pittsburgh. I just think that he's along those same lines. He's super fast. He's an absolutely insane route runner. He gives you that slot versatility where he could go outside if you need him to be, but he's on the inside. The Steelers told him that he had the cleanest workout of all time, and then they went totally ghost on him. And in my eyes, again, that was a red flag. There's a reason that you
Mhm.
go ghost on these guys. Jonathan Mingo was like that too, brought him in for a pre-draft visit, then everybody stopped talking about him. Josh Downs is a dude that if that happened tomorrow, if his name popped up in a pre-draft visit, there would be a lot of conversation about it. And the fact that there hasn't, to a lot of people, dims it down. I don't think that he's off their radar at all.
Yeah, Josh Downs is electric. I'm all in on Josh. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be a fantastic pick. Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and he would be exactly what they need if they can get him, I'm all for that. And I wonder, I do you ever wonder if, you know, when they go ghost on a player like that, it's just because they got what they needed? They're
Yeah,
pretty sure. Yeah.
100%. It's the Kalijah Cansey thing, you know, for everybody who's following Kalijah Cansey's journey. He didn't have a single pre-draft visit, and that's just because, you know, nobody's got questions for him. Like, nobody comes in for a pre-draft visit and, like, you know, you don't like work out. You do a little bit here and there, some guys, but for the most part, you're like taking a tour of the facility. You're meeting with Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and some position guys. You know, you're kind of just like answering questions. Like Jalen Carter, the fact that he didn't take a ton of pre-draft visits at first, that was why he was probably sliding, because guys have to ask these questions like, hey, what's going on? What are all these blah, blah, blah? You know, Kenny Pickett had all these excuse me, pre-draft visits because they were just asking. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat here. They were just asking about his tiny hand size. Like, hey, man, look, you can't throw the ball deep and you sleep with splints. What the heck's going on there? Did you see that, by the way?
No,
That
I didn't.
he went on the pivot yesterday, I guess it was released, and he said that he slept with splints on his hands so that they grew, so that they got longer. That's how he did that, and apparently it worked. I don't know, but
Yes, yeah.
that's
His hands are still small. I don't know.
yeah, hands are still baby hands, but that's okay. But that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody's bringing you in to like ask the positive traits. So I just think that when you get enough on a guy and they don't have any character concerns or they don't have any issues, especially a wide receiver, you know, you could kind of like lay off, you know, and like, you know, that being said, people bring up like, oh, well, they brought in Jonathan Mingo and Jalen Reed. Yeah, but they didn't go to their pro days, and, you know, they didn't spend any time scouting these guys. So they want to do a little bit of scouting here and there. Those pre-draft visits are kind of just like, okay, let's tie up some loose ends here. It's not really like a set in stone
Right.
type of thing.